Blessed and greetings to all my dear students. I hope you all are doing great. Well, for today's session, I would like to continue with chapter number 2, and that is Python Fundamentals. Before I proceed any further, I would like to quickly recall the content of the last week's video lesson. If my memory serves me all right, I introduced some of the very important and basic terms like the token, the keyword, you have the literals, the punctuators, the operators. So these are nothing but the basic the terms or the terminologies which form a crux of the Python program. All right. So I did start with the token. There are 5 important tokens. The first one is the keyword, which has a reserved meaning, and then the identifier, for which I came up with the example of variable, which is nothing but a label which refers to a value stored at fixed memory location. That's the identifier, and then literal, the data items which have fixed value, and then the punctuators, and then the operators. I also touched upon the variables, how they behave in the Python programming language. I did differentiate the way the variables behave in traditional computer language with that of the Python programming language. So in short, variable in Python is a label or a label which refers to a value which is stored at a fixed memory location. All right. So these were some of the basics which I've covered in the last week's video. So today we'll try to get closer to how the program actually looks like. But before that, we'll first try to understand how to install or how to use the Python IDLE. Over here, the last year the students have been using either Jupyter or the PyCharm, but the installation or the downloads of those programs are little, it's not really complicated as such, but it's a little difficult for me to show you here. So we'll rather focus on the default, the Python IDLE. So what you need to do is just visit this website, python.org, and then you can click on the downloads. So this is the default Python IDLE for Windows, and then if your computer has Mac OS, you could just click here, and then accordingly you can download the Python distribution for the Mac OS. All right. So if you have systems at your home, nothing like it, but if you do not have, that's completely all right. Once you come back, hopefully soon, we'll have a rigorous or an extensive, the lab classes. So no worries at all. So all you need to do is just click here and the download will start. Once the download finishes, open the download folder, and then just go to downloads folder. You will see a file like Python 3.8.5. double click on this, and then the installation starts. You don't need to do much. So perhaps click on few next the buttons, and then in just a matter of few minutes the Python will be installed onto your computers. So how to get started? Just go to the search box here, and then you can just type Python keyword, and then you will see the Python, there you go, IDLE. That's the option you need to open up, right? So you can just click on this IDLE Python 3.8, just click on that. And then this is the window that you will see. This window is actually called as Python shell. It looks something similar to the command prompt in MS-DOS, the DOS command prompt. So, and this, is actually called as Python command prompt. So in the default Python IDLE, you could build or you could interact in 2 modes. The first one is the interactive mode, which is the current the Python window. This is the interactive mode. why do we call this mode as interactive is, this mode is generally used for executing a single line Python command or single line Python statements. Just, as an example, say if I write 9 plus 10, when you press enter, you get the answer as 19. So this window, which we actually call it as interactive mode because, say we would like to test certain statement in Python, so which means you don't need to come up with one big program, okay? So if you want to deal with the single line statement, do it, right here in the interactive mode. So basically, the single line statement, once it's issued, you get the output instantly. Again, you come up with another statement. Again, then and there, you get the output. So it's so interactive in nature. But the problem, with this particular mode is you cannot have a large program in which you will have a collection of many statements, right? And then you cannot run the program as a big unit. If you run the program, generally you will end up with many output values. So that is something which you cannot do it here. This is, the instantaneous, the process. You run the single statement, you get the output, you run another one, again you get the output then and there. So, the outputs are sandwiched, within the commands of the Python programming language, right? And then another big problem with this is you cannot save the statements that you enter into the Python shell, right? So in order to take care of the problems which are a part of the interactive mode, you have the script mode. This is the interactive mode, and then you have another mode called script. S-C-R-I-P-T. Script generally means a collection of statements. So in the script mode, you can come up with a big program, okay, and then run that big program as a single unit, which would result in many output values. So if you want to come up with, a solid program or a program which has multiple statements, the script should be the choice. And then script also allows us to save the files for future references or future uses. So how do you go to the script mode? It's very simple. You can just go to File and then click on New. You will see this window. So this window in which you write the program is called the script mode, and this is the interactive mode. Okay, so this is the difference between the two. Now we'll try to understand how the values are assigned to the variables. Now today we'll deal with a few of the programming related variations, like how can you actually assign a value to a variable. For example, in the script mode, if I just write C equals 100, even though I use this equal, technically it's not equal to sign, rather 100 as a value is assigned to a variable. This is a value and this is a variable, and this is the assignment operator. In plain English term, 100 as a value is given to a variable of C. So when you actually print the value of C and then press enter, you get to see the result as 100. So it clearly shows that 100 is being assigned to C, and then when you print the value of C, you get to see the output as 100. And then, however, if you do something like this, let's say you assign 200 to C and then print the value of C again, this time you will see the updated value of 200. So you could clearly see the fact that if you want to run a single line statements or perhaps two statements, you could do it here without having to write it over there and save it and then run it, because these are pretty fast in nature, right? So now we'll start with the first variation. Now let's say I have something like this: a comma b comma c equals 5 comma 10, and then you have 7. All right, I hope you're able to see this. Just make this a little bigger. Options, configure, and then I'll just, that should be enough though, say 20 should be enough, and then say apply, right? Okay, let's say you have values as 5, 10, 7. What is the meaning of this is, these three values are assigned to the variables on the left hand side, and assignment should be orderly based. It should be based on order. So these three values will be assigned to the variables on the left hand side respectively. So the first value will be assigned to the first variable, second value will be assigned to the second variable, and third value will be assigned to the third variable. So the assignments will take place on orderly basis, or the values will be assigned respectively. So this is something new in Python programming language. So in the earlier languages, you don't have such assignments variation. Now let's say I make some changes like this. Okay, now I am working in the script mode. This is the interactive mode, and this is the script mode. So let's say I have the second statement as BCA equals A plus 1, and then B plus 2, I'm copying the question, alright? And then C minus 1. And then when you print the value of A, comma B, comma C. Now let's try to understand this. So you're done with the first one. So at the end of the first statement, you have the value of A as 5, B as 10, C as 7. Look at the second statement. The second statement works like this. Or just make it a little bigger. Okay, this is better. So how does this work is, okay, just get this here. So the values on the right hand side, are evaluated first. Okay, so be careful of this. The values, you have A plus 1, B plus 2, C minus 1. These are evaluated first, and then followed by the assignments operation. So initially the value of A is how much? 5, alright? And then 5 plus 1 is 6. I'll just push this a little down. Okay, so you have A plus 1, this is 5 plus 1 is 6, alright? And then you have B. The value of B was 10. And then you'll have 10 plus 2 is 12, alright? And the value of C, which was 7, 7 minus 1 is 6. Okay? So once the expression or the values on the right hand side are evaluated, and then the assignments will take place. So this time what happens is 6 will be assigned to B, alright? And then 12 will be assigned to C, okay? And then 6 will be assigned to A. Like I said, the assignment takes place on an orderly basis, alright? And then finally, when you print the value of A, what is the value of A? The value of A is 6, alright? The value of B is 6, and finally the value of C is 12, alright? So when you run this, now the thing about this is, before you run the program, you need to save this, okay? So just go to File and then click on Save, and then you can just give any random name, say A, just to keep it simple, and then click on Save, say Yes, alright? Now we'll try to run the program, alright? So how do you run the program is, go to Run and then you can just click on this option, run module, or you have the function key of F5. So when you click on this, say okay, what happens is, you could see right here the values of A, B, C are 6, 6 and 12, as shown here, 6, 6 and 12. I hope you have understood this. It's pretty simple, right? So you need to first evaluate the expressions on the right hand side, and then be careful when you assign the values. They should happen on an orderly basis. The first value should be assigned to the first variable, second value to second variable, third value to third variable. It's pretty simple, right? Now let's come up with another example. Now this is a little weird. I wish I could just get this whole thing up. Okay, no problem. Now let's say we come up with another example, right? Now let's say I have P comma Q equals 3 comma 5, all right? And then Q comma R is equal to P minus 2 and then P plus 2, okay? And then we'll try to print the value of P, Q and R. It's so important to get the simple expressions right. Otherwise, when you start dealing with the bigger program, you will experience problems of different variations. So you need to watch out. Okay, so again, 3 will be assigned to P and 5 will be assigned to Q. It's simple, right? And then the value of P being 3 minus 2 is 1, okay? And then the value of P was 3, remember? Okay, so 3 plus 2 is 5, all right? So 3 will be assigned to P, 5 will be assigned to Q. And then evaluate the expressions on the right hand side first before you do the assignments. So be careful, 3 minus 2 is 1, 3 plus 2 is 5. And 1 will be assigned to Q, okay? And 5 will be assigned to R. So initially, the value of Q is 5, okay? So this time, with the execution of the second statement, Q as a 5 will be replaced by the value of 1. Okay, so at the start, P has 3, Q has 5, but Q value has been updated as P minus 2, which is 1. And then, when you print the value of P, Q, R, the answer will be the value of P originally, and still it remains the same since we are not changing the value of P as such. The value of P will still be 3, alright? And then the value of Q is 1 and the value of R is 5, alright? So again, after any changes, after every changes, it's a must that you save the file. Since we have given the file name already, just click on file and then save it and then run the program. So when you run the program, you will get the answer as 3, 1 and 5. Okay, so this is again another variation of the multiple assignments. We actually call it as multiple assignments because you have multiple values being assigned to a multiple variables. Look at this, you have 2 values on the right hand side, okay, and 2 variables on the left hand side. So you are assigning multiple values to the multiple variables. Now these are something new in Python programming language. I don't remember exactly, if it could be done in C++, but what is absolutely sure is in the earlier programming languages you don't have such variations or such feature. So let's come up with another example. Let's say I'll just get rid of this. Okay. Just drop this also. Okay, let's come up with yet another example. Let's say x is equal to 10, right? And then you have y comma y is equal to x plus 2, right? Comma, and then you have x plus 5. Okay, and then I'll try to print the value of x, comma, sorry, I'll try to print the value of x and y like this. So this this is the Python command or the keyword. Like I said, the keyword is a special word which has reserved meaning to the compiler, right? So this print is one example of the keyword. We cannot use this particular word for our own variables. This has been reserved to convey a special meaning to the compiler, and it's evident from the fact that the moment you run this, it does display the values of these variables. So print is an example of the keyword. All right. So again, now it should be pretty simple. Now this time again it's a little different. The value of x being the 10. Now these two expressions will be evaluated first. 10 plus 2 is 12, okay, and then 10 plus 5 is 15, right? 10 plus 2 is 12, 10 plus 5 is 15, and then 12 will be assigned to y, but this time it's a little different from the earlier two examples. I'm using two variables with the same name. So the first step will be 12 and 15 will be evaluated. The next step will be 12 will be assigned to y. Okay, so once 12 has been assigned to y, the next operation will be 15 will now become the new value of y. So the step number 1 is evaluate x plus 2, x plus 5. That's the step number 1. Step number 2 is 12 will be assigned to y, and then step number 3 is 15 will be assigned to y. Since I'm referring to the same variables, the later value of y will be considered. So since the first value of y is 12, and then with the execution of the step number 3, 15 will now become the new value of y, which means y as a 12 will not exist any further. Alright, so when you print the value of x and y, what happens is the value of x is how much? 10, and the value of y will be 15. All right, so just run this F5. There you go, you get the answer as 10 and 15, right? So we'll come up with one more variation and then we'll be done and dusted with these multiple assignments. All right, just get rid of this and come up with one more program. Let's say x equals 20 and 30, and then you have y, comma y is equal to x plus 10, and then x plus 20, right? And then I'll try to print the value of x and y, right? So perhaps you could pause the video and try yourself. Okay, so again, look at the first statement. 20 and 30, the values are evaluated already, so there is no question of evaluating the expression on the right hand side because it's evaluated already. So the next step will be the first value will be assigned to the first variable. So x will initially have 20 as a value, but x as 20 will be replaced by 30. Alright, so with the execution of the first statement, the value of x is not 20, rather it is 30. Okay, and then once you have the final value of x is 30, 30 plus 10 is 40. Alright, so the 40 will be assigned to y, but again x plus 20, the value of x is how much? 30, right? So 30 plus 20 is 50. 50 will become the new value of y. Alright? So when you print, you have the value of x as 30 and the value of y as 50. Okay, so this should be a cakewalk. So if you just run this, you will get the answer as 30 and 50. So these 4 examples should be more than enough for you to understand how multiple assignments work, right? Now the next topic is, we'll try to understand what happens when a value is assigned to a variable. Okay? Now, but before this, I have yet another interesting program. We'll try to catch up with that first. Let's say I would like to swap the values. Swap means to interchange the values, right? A is equal to 10 and B is equal to 20. Alright? So swap SWAP means to interchange the values. Let's say I would like to have the value of B in A and have the value of A in B. So, that's a program, which is used to swap the values. So in the earlier programming languages, we need to take the help of another variable. It's just like this. Let's say you have a cup of tea and then cup of coffee. Okay? In cup A, you have the tea. In cup B, you have the coffee. So you would like to have coffee in cup A, tea in cup B. You would like to change it. So if you do it directly, there is no way, right? Unless you throw it up in the air. In the meantime, if you could pour it here and then skillfully get it here, that's another story, but that's not possible. So, we need to take the help of another empty cup. So this is how you need to hunt for the logic. Once you get the general, the logic, it's very easy to apply the logic onto the program. So if you want to swap the cup of coffee and cup of tea, why don't you take the help of another empty cup and then pour coffee in the empty cup, pour tea in this cup, and then finally get the coffee back in this particular cup, right? It's pretty simple, okay? Here, then get this back. So similarly, we can actually do it something like this. Let's say we take the help of an empty cup and then the value of A will be assigned to C, okay? Value of A is assigned to C, alright? And then in A, I assign the value of B. And then in B, I assign the value of C, okay? I hope you got this. This is cup of tea, cup of coffee, cup of tea, pour it in empty cup. Get the coffee in this, and then finally get the tea back in B. So when you run this, so once you're finished with this, let's check. Originally, let's say I print a message here. Original values. Okay? Just make the program a little interactive. Don't worry, I'll explain everything. A is equal to A, and then you have, just hang on, you have A, and then B is equal to, okay, B, right? So, and then once I do the swapping, say print the swapped values, something like this, and then I'll get the whole thing back. Okay, Shift, Control C, and then get this, right? So I'll just save it and then run it, right? So when you run it, original values of A is 10, B is 20. And then once I do the interchange, once I carry out the process of swapping, and then again when I check the value of A and B, A will now have the value of B and B will now have the value of 10. So this is how you change or interchange the values, using this general logic. But in Python, what you can do is you could, have this replaced by just one statement, okay, and that is A comma B is equal to B comma A. So this is something new in Python programming language. So this is the reason why the technologies keep on evolving. The more advanced the hardware is, the more advanced the software or the programming languages are, you have more gains in terms of effectiveness and then efficiency. Now that 3 statements, could be replaced easily with just 1 statement. So again, the value of B, which is 20, will be evaluated first. Please note that the values are not assigned one after another. First, the values on the right hand side are evaluated first. Get the values. B is how much? 20. The value of A is 10. 20 will then be assigned to A. 10 will then be assigned to B. So again, if I save this and then run it, I should get the similar output. So the earlier logic that I've shown you, has to be used with the languages like C and the earlier languages. But with the advent of the Python programming language, you could just have it done in a matter of just a single statement. All right. So this is something which you need to take note of. In the last class, I did mention something like this. Now these are the basics of the Python programming language, so you need to take special note. In the last class, I referred to a variable as a label, which refers to a certain value stored in the memory location, right? Unlike the earlier programming languages, in which the variables are like the storage container. The storage container, let's say, take the example of a Java computer language or C++. Say you have a Java variable, and I store 2 in this. Okay, the address, let's say, is 1000, and then I change the value from 2 to 3. Again, since it's just like a container, the address of this variable will remain the same. It will never change, because the variable, in the earlier programming languages are like the storage container. So the storage container has a fixed memory location. But what happens with Python is Python variables refer to a certain value, and that value will have a certain address. So the moment you change the value, it will again point to another value, and that another value has a different address. So the Python variables, since they refer to the value stored in the memory location, the addresses will keep on changing. I'll show you the proof. Let's say, A is equal to 100. Okay? So in Python programming language, the variables are created the moment the values are assigned. For example, look at this. Let's say I try to print the value of A, and then let's check what happens to this particular statement if I run this. When I run this, you could read the error message. Now this particular idea is very friendly in nature. They show you the kind of mistakes that you have committed. Name A is not defined, which means A cannot be recognized by the Python interpreter. This is a total stranger to the Python interpreter. It's the Python interpreter which is trying to convert the high-level language to machine language. So this is a total puzzle. Who is this A? No idea, this particular variable, because the variable A is not yet created. The question is, when is it created? Again, in the earlier computer languages, we first had to create or declare a variable, and then comes the assignment. But again, since Python is a brand new language with a lot of gains or advantages, the Python variables are created the moment a value is assigned to a variable. Right? Please get this right. So let's say, I get rid of this, and then I have the statement like 100. So the moment a value is assigned to a variable A has been created. The proof is, if I say run this, Python interpreter will be able to recognize not just the variable but also the value, right? So you don't get to see this, the error message. Rather, the Python interpreter interprets, the value of A as 100. So this is important statement. Python variables are created the moment the values are assigned. Alright? So I was just telling you, the address of Python variables keep on changing. The reason is they refer. They don't store the value, rather they refer to a value stored in the memory location, right? You have a function, say called ID. ID will actually display the memory address of a value pointed to by the variable. In the RAM or in the computer's memory, the data are stored at fixed memory location. Now the question is how CPU access the value stored in the memory location. It is through the addresses. Each one of you, every one of us has an addresses with which the GPS, anybody could access our location. So we should have addresses. So likewise, the data, the programs stored in the computers, they have memory addresses. So this addresses could be printed using a function called ID. Function means, I won't tell you much about function, but you have used functions in class 9. In spreadsheet softwares, you have functions like sum, average, max, minimum, rank. So those were nothing but functions which automatically carry out a certain specific function. So this ID is one such function, and the purpose of this function is to print the address of the value which is referred to by the variable of A. So when I press enter, hopefully it works. Say I just save it and then run it. Okay, do you see this big number? So this number is supposed to be the address in which the value of 100 is stored. Okay, so when you print the memory address of A, it will print the memory address, this particular memory address in which the 100 as a value is stored. Now let's say I change the value, right? I change the value to 200 and then I do the same thing, print ID of A. Okay, so kindly ignore this. I'm going to run the whole thing again. So when you run this, in fact, you see a change in the address. Here it's 156.37.3472, but this is 5072, right? So the address of A with a value of 100 is this, but since I've changed the value, the address also changes. So this is something very important with regard to the way Python variable behaves. The last class, I did tell you theoretically, why and how Python variable points to a value. The moment the value is changed, the address also changes. But this time, I've practically shown you how, this could be exhibited. Now, coming back to the dynamic typing. So again, you have this important topic called dynamic typing, right? You see this hash sign, right? So this hash sign will convert the following statements into comments. Comments means, this will no longer be a part of the program. So the Python interpreter will ignore this, the statement. This is just, a sentence or certain words, which are actually used to explain the program. So if you want to make the program explanatory, at times you would like to have some reminder in between, but those reminders, could be a part of the programming language. Okay, so if you want to kill those statements, if you want them not to be a part of programming language, now that's what is meant by comments. So if you want to have some reminders in between, you can have the hash sign, which means this will be ignored by the Python interpreter. Technically, this will not be a part of the programming language. Okay, so the program. Now let's say, what do you mean by dynamic typing? So again, this is a very, very unique thing about Python programming language. In the earlier languages, if I declare a variable to be of certain type, let's say I declare, and I'll show you. Say I would like to declare a variable in C++, okay? And this variable is of integer type. Once I do the declaration, I can use this variable for only integer values. You cannot assign, the values like the real number or the string or the boolean or the values, right? So once you declare a variable to be of certain type, you could just go on using the variable for a similar data type. Integer means just integers, string means just string, float means just float. However, one wonderful thing about Python programming language is the whole thing is so dynamic in nature. Dynamic means, which is so changeable, which is so flexible in nature. That is the meaning of dynamic, right? So what is the exact meaning of dynamic typing is, let's say I assign 100 to A. 100, is this an integer literal? Is this a boolean literal? Is this a float literal? Is this a string literal? If you could recall correctly, this has to be an integer literal. Literal means data items which have a fixed value, right? So if I add something like this, now this will now become a float literal. Float means the real numbers, right? So if I assign 100 to A, the data type of A is integer. The reason is 100 is an integer literal. So 100 is an integer literal means now the data type of this particular variable is integer. So it depends on the value that is being assigned to variable. How do you check it? Let's say I come little down, use the print statement, and then you can use the function of type of A. Alright, so when you press enter, save it and then try to run it. Okay, there you go. You get the answer of type A as int. So which means the data type of A. The data type of A means the value, the type of value which is assigned to A is integer. So the reason is, it all depends on the value which is being assigned to A. So in C++, in Java, once the variable is declared to be of certain type, it will remain as it is throughout the life of the program. But look at the Python, it's so flexible in nature. Let's say I come a little further down and then I assign, say, 100.11. Okay, and then I again check the type of A. Alright, and then save it, and then when you run it, you have to ignore this. Alright, I'm running the program all over again. You could see this initially when the value of A is 100. This print statement will give the answer as integer, and then immediately thereafter I assigned 100.11, which is the real number. So when this real number is assigned to A, when I check the type of A, it now is float. And you could do the same thing, with the boolean value also. Say A is equal to true. The boolean value should start with capital uppercase letter. Alright? And then again, when I print the type of A, let's check out, save it, and then run the program. Hopefully, look at this. The first print statement is int followed by float, and then you have the boolean. And then let's say we'll use the string data type. String data type means sequence of characters which are enclosed in a pair of single quotes or double quotes. I repeat, string means a sequence of random characters which are enclosed in a pair of single quote and double quote. Look at this. Now let's say if I write this 12 is not an integer. Many students, get this confusion at the start. Since I have enclosed this 1, 2 in a pair of single quotes, this 12 is not a number 12, rather it's a text 12. Rather, it's a string value. String is nothing but text value. The difference between this 12 and this 12 is, this is an integer literal and this is a string literal. Calculations could be performed on integer literal, the numeric calculation. The numeric calculation, could be performed on the integer literal, but you cannot add the numbers. Sorry, you cannot add or subtract, multiply, these kind of the literals, because this is nothing but a string. Okay, so if it's not clear, don't worry. We have a few programs to take care of that situation. Let's say if I assign, 1, 2 equals, now you cannot actually call it as 12. It's not a number as such. Okay, 12 means 10 plus 2 is 12. But, since it is string value, you should be saying 1, 2. So, print and then type of, what do you have here? A, alright? So let's save it and then run this again. Okay, there you go. Now the final print statement, will give you the answer as str. So these are the 4 important basic data types. The integer, float, boolean, and then you have the string. So instead of this, you can have the Tibet, okay, or free Tibet, safe Tibet, whatever you want, right? So did you notice something? The reason why we call it as dynamic typing is the data type of a variable could be changed, again and again, which is based on the type of values which are being assigned to the variable. The question is how variable types, could be changed so dynamically. It all, is based on the kind of data that you assign. So this is the meaning of dynamic typing. All right. So that's one more thing to be noted.